I'm Liz Faublas, and this is Currents. Tonight, new turmoil is roiling the Vatican. The highest-ranking Catholic Church leader to date is stepping down in the wake of accusations of inappropriate behavior. Cardinal Keith O'Brien of Scotland has submitted his resignation, and Pope Benedict has accepted it, effective immediately. 4 priests have accused the cardinal. He denies the allegations. But in his resignation statement, he did apologize to all who are offended by his failures. O'Brien will not participate in the cardinal's conclave to elect a new pope. As for that conclave, new developments tonight. The College of Cardinals will be able to meet early. Pope Benedict has changed the rules covering the papal election. Previously, before assembling inside the Sistine Chapel to conduct their deliberations, the cardinals had to wait 15 days. Now Benedict is giving them the authority to set an earlier date. Unofficial word from Rome tonight: the conclave could begin between March 9th and 11th. The actual date is likely to be set when the college meets on March 1st. Benedict signed the rules change earlier today. Yesterday, more than 200,000 people crowded into St. Peter's Square for the Pope's final Sunday blessing. The Holy Father told them he is following God's invitation.
The Lord is calling me to climb the mountain, to devote myself even more to prayer and meditation. But this does not mean abandoning the church. Indeed, if God is asking me to do this, it is so that I can continue to serve the church with the same dedication and the same love with which I have done thus far, but in a way that is better suited to my age and my strength.
The tremendous crowd seemed to energize Benedict. On Saturday, he seemed more frail as he ended his week-long Lenten retreat. Addressing an assembly of cardinals, the Pope condemned the, quote, evil, suffering, and corruption that contradict God and make his beauty unrecognizable. During the retreat, Cardinal Gianfranco Ravisi led the meditations, and echoing the Holy Father, he is denouncing what he calls the divisions, dissent, careerism, and jealousies that are afflicting the Vatican. As those words make clear, these are troubling times inside the Vatican. This morning, Pope Benedict met with these 3 cardinals. From left to right, Cardinal Julian Herons, Cardinal Joseph Tomko, and Cardinal Salvatore De Giorgi. Assigned as investigators by the Pope, they were charged with the mission of uncovering the truth about reports of Vatican misdeeds. News accounts in Italy's largest newspaper and a leading magazine claim the cardinals discovered a network of homosexuals inside the Holy See, a blackmail ring, and more problems at the Vatican Bank. Vatican officials are complaining about the stories without actually denying their accuracy, saying, quote, unverified, unverifiable, or even completely false news stories that cause serious damage to persons or individuals are deplorable. Missing from that statement any claim that the news stories that are generating headlines around the world are the ones that are indeed false. This is the magazine reporter who first broke the story, Ignazio Ingrajo, and he claims cardinals are implicated in the alleged corruption, and Benedict decided to leave the papacy because he no longer trusted the men around him. Several reports expected Pope Benedict at this morning's meeting to instruct the 3 cardinals to brief the conclave on the investigation ahead of the vote for Pope. Instead, the Vatican now says the report will remain secret, to be revealed only to the new pontiff after his election. A leading papal scholar, George Weigel, believes corruption is rampant inside the Italian government, and it has seeped into the Vatican, helping to breed today's troubles. The Italian people, meantime, may have had their fill of that government and the way it does business. Today is election day in Italy, and as we learn now, another big shock could be about to hit Rome again.
He comes onto stage like a rock star. Beppe Grillo, comedian turned fire-breathing, curse-flinging critic of the status quo. I've gone all over Italy, he bellows, and I've seen how it's disintegrated. It's full of economic and political rubble. Grillo founded his so-called 5-star movement less than 4 years ago, first railing on his blog and more recently in piazzas across the country against sky-high taxes, Italy's legendary red tape, corrupt politicians, greedy businessmen, and lazy bureaucrats.
Some people call him the clown prince of Italian politics, but fact of the matter is that Beppe Grillo cuts to the core of what's wrong with Italian politics, and Italians are listening.
Italian law bans the publication of poll results 15 days before an election, but private, unpublished polls suggest the five-star movement may be about to send shockwaves through traditional politics. Many Italians are fed up and say they won't take it anymore. Sandra works in a call center and has come to cheer on Grillo.
We are exhausted about this. We don't have work, we don't have money, we don't have nothing.
Grillo and his supporters have bypassed the traditional media, boycotting Italian television, and have used the internet to get their message out, conduct primaries, and organize their campaign. The direct approach seems to be working. Now with the internet, information is freer, says Alessandro, a worker. We know the dirty work of all our old politicians. We should kick them all out and stop them from robbing the Italian people. Espedito, a retired police officer, resents the dictates of foreign financial institutions and European Union bureaucrats in Brussels. What Italy are we, he asked me. Don't we have any more power? The Romans were strong. We conquered the world. There are about 100 candidates from the movement, but Grillo himself isn't one. But he is the movement's most visible and definitely most vocal proponent. My words aren't my pistol, he tells me. Grillo insists he started something no one can stop. This is an epidemic, he says. People have discovered a hope they thought was lost. Their hope may be the despair of Italy's ruling class. They still don't understand, Grillo shouts to the crowd, what's coming their way. Ben Wiedemann, CNN, Rome.
Coming up next, the fight to beat back the radical Cuomo abortion law as currents continues after the break. Welcome back. There may be cracks tonight in Governor Andrew Cuomo's rabid push to bring unlimited abortion to New York. Cuomo wants to make the killings of the unborn a so-called fundamental right. That means abortion at any time for any reason, with taxpayers footing the bill. Now, a Cuomo lawyer claims the governor only wants a law in New York that's the same as federal law. Pro-life leaders are skeptical that Cuomo is changing his position, saying he has, quote, clearly expressed his support for a drastic expansion of abortion in New York. Cardinal Dolan has condemned Cuomo's radical plan. Whether the Cuomo abortion law in any form ever makes it onto the books, though, is up to the New York State Legislature. This afternoon, New York Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis joined me at the Currents anchor desk. She represents parts of Brooklyn and Staten Island, and she's opposed to the governor's march to more abortions. I asked her about the legislation's prospects.
The opposition's there because the bill is so extreme. I mean, I've spoken to Republicans, Democrats, people who are pro-life, pro-choice, and many agree that this bill is very extreme. It would allow abortions up until the 9th month of pregnancy, and also it would allow children to have abortions without parental notification. And I think that most New Yorkers are opposed to that.
I want to just read you a brief statement from a Washington Times op-ed piece, and tell me if you agree or disagree. I kind of think this is the track that you're on. Quoting here, the proposed legislation would remove parental notification laws and informed consent laws, restrictions on taxpayer funding of abortion, restrictions on late-term abortions, which you just mentioned, and essentially all restrictions. It would also allow non-physicians to perform abortions. Simply put, the goal of the Reproductive Health Act is abortion anywhere, anytime, by whomever.
That is a very good summary, I think, of this legislation, which is why, you know, it has been called extreme by so many different people across the political spectrum, both in Albany and here and across the nation. I think it definitely is something that we, you know, need to make sure does not pass in Albany, and the way we do that is by ensuring that we call our representatives and make sure that they know that we're opposed to this legislation, as 80% of New Yorkers have said they are.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the political undercurrents that you mentioned surrounding the bill. First, in terms of public opinion, the most recent Marist poll shows that more than 8 out of 10 Americans favor significant restrictions on abortion. Secondly, the Senate It's kind of difficult to predict right now. We have a mix of Democratic and Republican control. Neither side really have the numbers to go at it alone. And finally, we have a state assembly, by all accounts, that's controlled by Democrats who actually support abortion rights. So taking all these variances into account, how viable do you think Governor Andrew Cuomo's prospects are?
Well, I know this bill has not come up for a vote in the past, even in the New York State Assembly, which is so overwhelming Democratic, because there are members of the New York State Assembly from both parties who are opposed to abortion. We do have a vote every year to stop the funding, Medicaid funding of abortions here in the state of New York, and Democrats vote for that as well. I don't think that this is a piece of legislation that will pass and get approval from our legislators, but we need to make sure that the people of the state of New York are out there making these phone calls to their legislator to know where we stand. It's going to be a difficult piece of legislation for the governor to pass, which is why he wants to incorporate it with other pieces of legislation and make it one multi-omnibus piece of legislation that includes domestic violence legislation, that includes equal pay legislation, so he can kind of squeeze it in. But that's why it's important that our legislators get out in front of this bill and say, no, we're not going to accept something that would allow abortions up until the 9th month here in the state of New York.
And today in New York City, the Assemblywoman does point out 40% of all pregnancies end in abortion. A Cuomo abortion law that results in even more death is unnecessary. And a New York Post editorial argues the governor is pushing for more abortions as part of a political push to win the White House in 2016. Meantime, Assemblywoman Malliotakis also is a leader in the fight to bring financial help to our schools, especially our Catholic schools. Tomorrow, we'll learn more about that. Tonight, another well-known leader is resigning, but with a difference, and the flight to Egypt remembered in Brooklyn. All this as Currents continues. The slaughter in Syria is sparing no one tonight. The home of the Pope's ambassador to Damascus has been destroyed in what Archbishop Mario Zannari calls a massacre. We are walking on the dead, he says, charred bodies torn to pieces. The number of 70,000 war victims is even more appalling. The Archbishop adds, when we think how these people die, their bodies are torn apart. Well, that horror is sending refugees fleeing into Jordan in the desperate search for safety. Usually out of fear of being attacked in daylight, the refugees cross the border under cover of darkness. Now, the exodus never stops, day or night. In the last week alone, more than 20,000 people crossed into Jordan. The biblical refugees, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, fled a murderous tyrant, Herod, and found safety as immigrants in the land of Egypt. Now, 2 millennia later, in Brooklyn, the flight into Egypt is remembered and celebrated in East New York.
We're at St. Fortunata's Parish, and we are having our annual Jesus Light into Egypt Mass, in which the African community celebrates how Jesus, as a child, was an immigrant and left as a refugee.
The African community is celebrating this flight because it reminds them of the plight of immigrants, and they are immigrants in America. And Jesus, so to say, was the first immigrant, and that is exemplary for them, and they love the fact that God chose them to keep his son safe.
Christ, when he was being chased, he went to Africa as a refugee, and he stayed there as a foreigner with his life secure. And that made it very important that, yes, Africans played a very good, important role in the life of Christ.
And it's an opportunity that we take the African culture and we celebrate how Jesus even sanctified the Africans by his presence in Africa.
That's the way we look at ourselves here as immigrants in the United States. This is our safe haven. And at the same time, it's the safe haven of Jesus when he flew into Egypt with the family.
So we take the statue of the baby Jesus, and he's dressed in traditional African clothes that you can see, the little statue. And they have their rituals as if in the village they welcome him into the family, and they're welcoming Jesus and God into their family and into their traditional world.
We all have to know that it is always good to treat foreigners, to treat those who left their homeland. It doesn't matter where that homeland is. It is good to treat them well. And it is also good to welcome them. Because when Christ was in Africa, he was welcomed with an open arm.
Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, all over the country that are Catholic, they're all gathered here to celebrate Christ, which means that wherever you're from, Christ is our Savior.
Different cultures come together, and the symbols of our faith, while using language and culture, shows our diversity and how rich we are.
The Gentiles should embrace this feast because it pertains to us and it pertains to every universal church.
This reminds us about the role we have continued to play in the promotion, the promulgation and propagation of Christianity and around the world.
It's one of the many flavors of being Catholic and how the church is universal. It's not just here at St. Fortunata's, it's not just in Jerusalem or in Rome, but how God brings us all together as one family and gathers us and celebrates our culture and our faith with us.
Pope Benedict is not alone in his intention to resign. The communist leader of Cuba, Raul Castro, Fidel's brother, says he's resigning too, but not until 2018. Word of the long goodbye comes as the communists say Castro is going to serve another 5-year term as president. If he then keeps his word and quits, Cuba would be without a Castro for the first time since 1959. Raul is 81, Fidel is 86. The inauguration of a new president in South Korea tonight, and with her comes history. Park Geun-hye is the first woman to lead the country, though she is no stranger to South Korean politics. Her father was one of the founders of modern Korea and ruled the country until his assassination in 1979. The new President Park is promising to transform the Korean peninsula, both north and south, from a zone of conflict into a zone of trust. Up next, a top candidate for Pope has a friend in New York. Details as Currents continues after the break. As the cardinals of the Catholic Church gather in Rome tonight to say goodbye to Pope Benedict and elect his successor, some are recommending that they look to Africa. The continent is now home to 16% of the entire world's Catholic population, and the faith is growing there faster than anywhere else. One of the names receiving a lot of mention as a potential pope is Cardinal Peter Turkson. He's from Ghana, and as we learn now, the cardinal also has a close tie to New York.
All right, just bend this up and down, okay?
Near Albany, New York, orthopedic surgeon Joe Murata specializes in healing broken bones. But among his friends, someone who helps heal broken souls.
What is it like knowing someone who could be the next pope?
Well, it's very exciting.
Vatican-based Cardinal Peter Turkson of Ghana is considered one of the top contenders. One bookmaker has him as the favorite at 2-1. If selected, Turkson would be the first black pope and a rare non-European.
He's my idol.
The two met a few years ago when his pastor introduced his colleague, Peter.
And Peter turned out to be?
Peter turned out to be Cardinal Peter Turkson, president of the Pontifical Council of Justice and Peace at the Vatican, and a very close advisor and confidant to the Holy Father.
With the Cardinal's encouragement, Dr. Murata has since done surgery in Ghana and is raising money for an orthopedic clinic there.
When the Cardinal visits Albany about once a year, he often stops to say Mass at this small parish, St. Joan of Arc, where a friend of his, also from Ghana, is pastor.
Cardinal Turkson has deep ties to upstate New York, where he attended seminary. On a recent U.S. trip, Murata picked him up at the airport. As the Cardinal dozed off, Murata couldn't help but think,
you know, here's a man who could be the next pope. I got a little nervous and started to take my foot off the gas and slowed way down.
If Cardinal Turkson is elected, Dr. Murata predicts high energy, but has a low expectation for major change.
He has told me that I need to understand that the church is thousands of years old, that change and adoption of new ideas in the church by necessity takes place very, very slowly.
Murata exchanges emails and phone calls with the Cardinal, but perhaps not for long. And would that change in your relationship make you sad?
It does make me sad because I've come to, to love and appreciate him and to look up to him and to really rely on his counsel.
Even arranging an audience with Pope Benedict to tell him about the clinic in Ghana. Do you remember your knees shaking?
Oh yes, I was very nervous and very pale and tongue-tied at first.
And it could turn out he was in the presence of a future pope as well. Susan Candiotti, CNN, Albany, New York.
And finally tonight, our Jim Mancari reports on the Catholic high school girls in our diocese who are striving to be the best that they can be.
The Catholic Youth Organization of Brooklyn and Queens crowned 10 girls basketball champions this past weekend. 7 championship games were played at St. John's Prep in Astoria, 2 were played at St. Margaret's Parish in Middle Village, and the final game was played at Our Lady of Hope Parish, also in Middle Village.
Basketball out of our 6 major sports is the largest. We have approximately just under 100 parishes participating in basketball overall, with approximately 55 to 60 participating in girls basketball.
The spectators have been outstanding. The parents have been really supportive of both teams. It's a true CYO atmosphere.
This is the pinnacle of their season. This is what they've been pointing all along. And win or lose, they know they've had the opportunity to get out there and give it their best.
Sunday's CYO Championships were the culmination of a long season of dedication and hard work. The following 10 teams emerged victorious. In the A Division, St. Adalbert's Parish in Elmhurst brought home the title in both the Pee Wee and Novice Division.
They played very well. They played great defense, which has been our forte all year, and they really made shots when they needed to, so they did a great job.
We worked really hard to come to this game with all my friends and get that trophy.
We versed St. Mel's 4 times throughout the year before. They beat us 3 and we only beat them once before. So this is our 2nd win against them. It's fun going to practices almost every day and going to games, so it's fun. It's just an honor to be a basketball player with my team.
We were down 6-0 early. We took the lead 7-6, and then after that we just continued playing the way we play, and obviously we prevailed.
It was very exciting because we were looking forward to this all year.
It was really hard at first, but then we got back and we won.
I was really nervous, and I thought, for seconds I thought we were going to lose, but in the end we pulled it together.
St. Adalbert basketball program is tremendous. Every year we always seem to have, especially girls teams, who always advance and win. You know, we got great teams we've always had.
Other A Division winners included Our Lady Queen of Martyrs from Forest Hills, Good Shepherd from Marine Park, and Our Lady of the Angelus from Rego Park. The B Division champions were Holy Child Jesus from Richmond Hill, St. Nicholas of Tollentine from Jamaica, Immaculate Conception Monastery from Jamaica Estates, Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary from Ozone Park, and St. Michael St. Malachi from East New York. Congratulations to the 2013 CYO Girls Basketball Champions. The Boys Championships will be held in late March. Reporting for Currents, I'm Jim Mancari.
And thank you for joining us tonight. We leave you with more of the celebration of the Holy Family's flight into Egypt. Please remember to stay with us for all the latest breaking news on the papacy. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Have a good night.